Hey Amarillo, I'm Jason Boyette, and you're listening to Hey Amarillo, the interview podcast featuring some of the most interesting people and stories of Amarillo, Texas. Today's guest is Jim Dewitz, who, with his wife Candy, is the owner, operator of Big Jim's Pizza on Olson, the iconic KN Root Beer Drive-In, also located on Olson, and the equally iconic Tascosa Drive-In Theater on the Dumas Highway. Jim is originally from the Chicago area, but he came to Amarillo in his late teens to get back on the right track. He ended up in construction and apartment management and operated a successful construction company until a series of events made him one of the owners of the La Bella Pizza restaurant on Olson. It's a complicated story, but that resulted in him opening what became Big Jim's Pizza a few years ago. And the Big Jim's rebrand has been really successful, and it led to Jim purchasing KN and the Drive-In Movie Theater when those became available. So we talk in this episode about why he stayed in Amarillo, his path to entrepreneurship, and what he loves about this community. Here's Jim Dewitz. Jim Dewitz, welcome to the Hey Amarillo podcast. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an honor to have you. You're one of those guests that a number of people have told me I needed to interview. And so I'm glad we're finally making it happen.
Yeah.
And I want to start with you the same way I start with all my guests, and that's just to ask why you're here in this area. So what brought you to Amarillo in the first place?
Well, where I'm from, I'm just outside of Chicago, a little town called Kenosha. Most people didn't ever hear about it until, a couple of years ago. We had some riots and things happen there. But that's my hometown. When I was living up there, I was kind of, being a dumb kid and up to no good. My mom sent me down here to live with my grandparents who lived here.
Okay.
And then so I met my wife, and then I've been handcuffed to the city ever since.
How old were you when you moved here? Or were sent here, I guess.
Yeah, right. Probably 19.
Okay. So had you graduated from high school?
I had graduated.
Okay.
And that was part of the bait to get me down here, is because my grandpa had an old 76 Scout that I really wanted, and he told me I had to go back, graduate high school. When I finished that, then I could come down here and claim my truck.
Okay.
So I did. That was it.
What happened after you moved here? Like, did you have a job lined up? Did you have ideas with college or anything like that? Like, did you have a plan?
They did. My grandparents insisted that I go to college, but I also worked because my uncle and my grandpa both had a construction company together. So I worked for them. And then I went to college as well. I went to Amarillo College. Okay. I got an associate's in applied science and paramedicine. When I graduated there, we were the first class to have licensed paramedics come out of there. Okay. So, which all it was it used to be like a certificate program.
Right.
And then they made it where it was with a degree, you could also be a licensed paramedic, which was kind of like a step up.
What year was that? What's the timeline?
99.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of a 19-year-old sent to his grandparents, sort of as a punishment, maybe to get your life together. Like, did you come to Amarillo with like a chip on your shoulder, or were you annoyed by it? Or
I kind of didn't disagree, honestly. Okay. When because I really wasn't going anywhere, just kind of there into trouble, and probably heading down a path which obviously has shown to be a good decision now. Sure. Because most of my friends, I even have one of my friends that actually just moved out of his mom's house. I mean, like, that's how, like, there's a lot of my friends that I would have probably still been there with, haven't done a whole lot. Some have, of course, but there's quite a few that are still just kind of treading water, And so I'm glad and I'm fortunate I had the opportunity to actually come down here and have changed my life.
Was it something about the environment? Is it being away from your friends, or was there like a fresh start kind of feel once you came here?
I think a lot of it had to do with economics. Mm-hmm. I was very poor, so that's usually when desperate measures come about and things like that. So, and that was what was going on up there. And I came down here. I lived a more stable life. Mm-hmm. My grandparents, were older, retired, and they had properties, so I worked on those with them. It helped me learn a lot about, being more self-sufficient, because before I came here, I didn't even know how to do a whole lot. My parents were divorced since I was young, and so I didn't necessarily learn all the things you probably need to as a young man growing up. And when I came down here, my grandpa helped a lot with that. My uncle as well. Okay. That got me where we were able to, I had more of the business kind of aspect in mind in my life. So when my grandparents, or my uncle and my grandpa, had a construction company. They were real small time, doing little things like that. And then eventually I ended up starting my own construction company, and then I hired them.
Okay. Let's walk through your career because your education was as a paramedic.
Yeah.
Right now you are owning restaurants, and then there's this construction piece in the middle of that. So that's a pretty diverse career path. Tell me kind of where you ended up and what happened.
Well, so when I was in college, of course, I worked construction while in college, and then I got married to her while I was in college. And then once I graduated, I was like, this is going to change my life. I'm going to make all this money and going to do great. Well, I was wrong. So I go to be a paramedic. I actually had to take a $4 pay cut to be a paramedic for what I went to school for.
Yeah, nobody pursues riches as a paramedic.
Right. But that wasn't my end goal. I actually wanted to go and be a physician at some point. I was going to nursing school as well, but then life started happening. And so we kind of made some decisions back then that, I was like, well, am I going to be 12 years from now? Then we're going to have kids when I'm in my mid to late 30s and things like that. Is that what we want to do, or do we want to have kids? Well, we wanted to have kids. So we decided on that, and we kind of changed our path that way. So I stayed a paramedic as long as I possibly could. And then we started getting into investment properties. So we bought an apartment building. Well, actually, we were in the middle of renovating our very first rental that we bought when we found out she was pregnant with our oldest son. And then from there, we built quite a bit of properties. I think, what did we have at one time, like a dozen or something like that, plus a 12-unit building. Okay. So we built it up pretty nice, but during the apartment phase of our lives, we were trying to renovate it as well, just ourselves, like my uncle and me, and I think we had one or two other guys that we hired just to be labor hands kind of, and the building burned. Wow. And that happened on my very first Father's Day. So it was a really rough one. We were celebrating and out having a good time, and I got a call at like 3 or 4 in the morning from one of my crewmates at AMS, the paramedic, saying, "Hey, your building's on fire right now." Wow. So we freak out. We run up there, and sure enough, it's burning bad. And
what were those apartments?
The Carrollton at 17th and Jackson. Okay. And we'd renovated, like I said, almost 3/4 of the way. Yeah. And then it burned, so that was completely start over. And we had a long fight with the insurance and all that about it, and finally got through it. But because of that massive construction project, that spawned me starting a construction company again. And then that's when my uncle and grandpa came on with me for that. Because once the building was done, I had such a crew of guys. I had to do more stuff. I had to have work for them. I didn't want to do like, thanks for the help, see you later. Right. So we kept it going, and then that grew. And I did that for almost 12 years, I think.
What was that company called?
4J's Construction. Okay. And because it was supposed to be, we haven't had my youngest son yet at that point. So it was, my grandfather was Jack, John, me, I'm Jim, and then my oldest is Jackson. Okay. So that's where we came up with that one. But yeah, it really grew. I had a cabinet shop down on Crockett, 3rd and Crockett, that was huge, 7,000 square foot cabinet shop. And we were kind of becoming a pretty major player at the time back then, and then ran into an unscrupulous builder, back then, and they kind of knocked us down pretty bad. So that the cabinet part quit, and then we got into doing some commercial construction. We did a lot of work with Plains Builders, and those guys, the brothers there, are just amazing. They gave us tons of work, paid us like an ATM. I mean, every time you submit an invoice, they'd pay you. Never had any problems. It was just great. Kept us real busy. So did that for quite a while. Then that turned into, we did the airport, the way the airport's set up now, the concessions and all that. Right. We did all that. They basically subcontracted my company to do that. Okay. And then from that spawned a whole another, project after that. The company that is doing that, Tailwinds, they hired us to go down to Corpus and do the other airport there for them. And I checked with Plains and said, "Are you guys okay with this? I don't want to tick you off and have you think I'm stealing your customers or anything like that." They're like, "We're not interested in going to Corpus." Okay. So we went down there and spent, I think it was like 3 months down there and did that airport. While I was gone, the business at the home front wasn't doing too well. So that kind of went away. Had a friend of mine that passed away right during that time when we were in Corpus. And that really kind of altered the course of our lives at that point. So I kind of lost any passion or interest in doing much of anything at that point. He's like my brother. We spent every holiday together. Our kids are born at the same times. They were all raised together. I mean, it was really like we're very, very tight. He's my best friend. His wife is her best friend, all that. So,
what year was that when he passed?
I told him when I did this, I wanted to have the
you got a tattoo on your arm.
Yeah, I've got them. This is my grandma. It's like that. My uncle's up here. I got numbers, and the tattoo artist says, "No, don't put the numbers on there. That reminds you of that." So it's it was in 2012 then.
Okay,
but yeah, that altered the course of our lives. I just really didn't care about a whole lot for a little while. I had some little depression going on with that, and then another great friend of mine knew that we were in trouble financially. Things were kind of going down, and he offered me a job, and I went pipelining for a while. I worked for Interpipe here in Amarillo. My friend James, he really kind of pulled us out of the ashes there and got me a job there, and then it was like amazing. Maybe just making tons of money, doing really well. All our bills were paid. Things were all our stuff was paid off. Any kind of debt we had, it was all gone. And then I did that for several years, but the worst part about that was I have 2 young boys at home and my wife, and I only get to see them maybe once a month, and that's when they come to me.
Right. There's not a lot of pipelines going through Amarillo, so you're traveling to do
of course, most of that work. They are working
well,
here.
That's true.
Like,
that's
what
true.
the heck, but yeah, that's true. So I was down in Corpus and Houston and places like that quite a bit. San Antonio, I worked there for a while, but it was good money. Had a great time doing it, but it was bad. Like I didn't even see my house for a year and a half at one point, just living in my trailer. So it was that. And well, then the first Trump election comes along and everything slowed down in the oil field. I was still fairly new to it, so I didn't have a lot of contacts. Didn't really have any way to get work other than through my friend, which they were shutting down for a while there. And so I decided, I got, pretty good little nest egg of money. Everything's paid for. We can go home and I can spend a few months at home and see what happens, And then that's when the opportunity arose to buy Labella.
Right.
And then because a friend of mine used to be an employee of mine at my cabinet shop. He installed cabinets for me. He was always a delivery driver for Labella.
Okay.
So during the time I was gone pipelining, he bought the Canyon location. And then when I came back, I went out there, I hung out with him at the store there and started showing him, because as a young man in Wisconsin, outside of Chicago there, is I would make pizzas at a place called Fireside.
Okay.
That was like one of my first jobs.
So you had some experience making pizza.
I did. Yeah, I worked at Fireside making pizzas, and I also worked at a place called The Spot that's still there. Fireside's gone. They tore it down and built a gas station or something, which is sad, but because it was a great place. But The Spot is still there, and it's a lot like KN.
Okay.
So it's a drive up, old time drive-in burger joint, homemade root beer, everything.
Yeah.
All the same stuff.
I want to hear about the thought process behind that, because obviously, you had made pizza as a teenager. Making pizza is not the same as owning a pizza shop.
Right.
Owning a cabinet shop or a construction company is not the same as operating a restaurant.
It's very different.
Tell me, when you saw that opportunity, how did you think about it? Did you think, oh, this is something I can do? Or, oh, this is risky, but I'm okay with that kind of risk? How did you work your way into it?
I really thought that, my wife and I both, we thought, what if we could make about the same money, even if it was a little less, but I'm home.
Okay.
That was the main allure to that, because it wouldn't have been much longer, and I probably would have been back on the road and probably gone for another couple of years, and, I'd still probably be pipelining.
Yeah.
But I really did miss my family, and I felt like even when I was home for that little bit of time like that, I felt like I was an outsider in my own home because I'd been gone for so long, and they have their routines. She puts them to bed.
Like you're disrupting the family life.
Exactly. So, I'd just, half the time when it was time for bed, I'd go sit on the porch and drink a beer or something, because I really got nothing to do with that part of the day, So, and it was just a lot of that. It was mainly because we wanted to stay home.
Okay.
We also thought that we could, having already run a business that was successful for quite a long time and really kind of went down to little fault of my own. It was more circumstantial and things like that. So we thought we were pretty good at running a business, but obviously we realized very quickly into the restaurant part of it that you'd have to treat people a lot different.
Yeah.
In construction, it's all dudes. It's rough, like I'm going to kick your butt if you don't do what I tell you, those kind of things, like I'll just get the heck out of here and I'll, stuff like that. So construction is different. Mm-hmm. We get into the restaurant business and it's not the same.
Yeah.
People are, well, for one, you're dealing with ladies as well, which is a lot less than construction. So you can't talk the same, things like that. It's not so much a locker room talk,
right,
as it would be on construction site or in
a lot of younger employees too,
right?
Like people with their first jobs or early in their careers.
Sure. And the construction guys, it's usually older guys that have been doing it a while. If you're lucky, you get some guys that know what they're doing and have been doing it a while. But 100% now that we're in the restaurant business, almost all of our employees, they were their first job or something. So it's kind of up to us to help show them some work ethic, because a lot of them don't come with that automatic anymore. I mean, for sure. I mean, our sons do because they've seen us work our butts off all the time, but we get a lot of kids that they're just like, well, I thought it was okay for me to stand here and vape and look at my phone. It's like, no, you're supposed to.
Yeah.
There's this whole
somebody standing in front of the register here.
Yeah.
You also rebranded. Like Labella had an existing brand. People knew it, had been going there.
Yep.
Tell me how you thought about that part of it.
That was my ex-partner that we were partners with in Labella. So when he bought the location in Canyon, the Hillside and Olson locations came up for sale because that previous owner wasn't doing well. And so we had the opportunity to buy it. But what I told him was I'd like to be, if I'm going to buy in, I want to be partners in all three of the locations. So he kind of put that into the kitty. He had a little bit more percentage of a partnership than we did, but we were okay with that. Year went by, business kind of was terrible just because any number of things. So we worked hard to try and get the business to build back up. Did a little better, but not amazing. So my partner or ex-partner decided he just wanted to let that Olson store go for a myriad of reasons, but he decided he wanted to let it go. My wife and I were like, this one's the one that's doing it.
Yeah.
The other stores are kind of lagging. Like that store makes more money than the other two combined. And so we're like, why would we do that? And so we tried to tell him multiple times, like, this store is the one that makes money. We don't want to feel bad about this later, but I would like to take it over. We'll separate partnerships, or else I just want to be bought out, or whatever. I'm out of it. And we ended up taking it over. Things just kind of dissolved after that. And then this kind of the straw was we had a shooting in our store. Years ago, where there was an attempted robbery. 2 guys came in there. My assistant manager had a pistol on him, legally. He was legal to carry it and everything. And he perceived that the guy was bringing a gun around to point it at him, and that's when he shot him. And so that was just a big, bad deal for us. We were freaking out. I mean, all of our life and money is in this business. And
what year was that?
2017, 2018, somewhere in there.
Okay.
I really don't. I'm not 100% on it, but again, we were freaking out about it. Like, we're going to lose everything we've ever worked for, and it's like, here we go again. And so we made sure to take real care of everything. We wanted our employees to be sensitive to the fact that somebody just lost their son,
right?
And a son just lost their dad at the same time with this happening. And we were, it's never a good thing for someone to be killed for any stretch of the imagination. So we were sensitive to that. And we didn't want people to look bad upon us either way. There's pro-gun people, there's anti-gun people. What do we do? You can't satisfy everybody. I think we actually did a pretty awesome job at satisfying everybody because we were neutral about it. We said that, and
but still, it gets attached to the name of your restaurant.
Yeah.
It's a news story that you can't shake.
And it's still there. I still get people ask all the time, somebody really got shot in here? And like, I mean, it's a bad deal. But that was part of the big trigger that kind of really separated Labella and what was soon to be Big Jim's.
Okay.
Fast forward another year or so after that, the founder and him made some kind of side agreement that I don't even know how it really worked, but it did. That he was going to own the naming rights to Labella. So in the future, whenever I finished paying off my note to the founder, that he was going to have control of our name. And I would probably have to pay him money in order to continue to be Labella. Yeah. So that was a problem, obviously. So I was like, well, that's not going to work. So we said, well, we're just going to change it because we wanted to. We changed it to Big Jim's Pizza.
And Big Jim's has flourished. Like you really built a community, people that don't just love your pizza, but like love to come there because you've got live music. Like it's got a great reputation.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we were shooting for. I think the name change was a blessing and a curse because it helped us do what we wanted to do with our own name. But at the same time, our business has faltered some because of not having the name, and people still, they get confused.
Right.
Even though I have Big Jim's on the windows when you walk in and all that stuff, and they're just like, they kind of look around like, what? Is this the right place?
Tell me how KN Root Beer happened.
KN Root Beer was, we just like literally saw it across the street all the time. We ordered from there here and there, but not near as much as you'd think being right across the street.
But it's been in Amarillo for forever, decades.
Yeah, since 68.
Okay.
I believe. And then, but the real trigger was the craziest thing is my wife and I were flipping through, we're sitting there looking for somewhere to go to eat for lunch, and we're looking on the restaurant review page, at your own risk one, of course. Yeah. So we're on there, and a buddy of mine, Tyler True, had posted, went to KN today, had amazing hamburgers, blah, blah, blah. I even heard the places for sale from one of the car hops. So we were like, is it really for sale? Like, that'd be crazy right across the street. How convenient, we could buy that. And we had sold our apartment building not too long ago, so we had money tied up in a tax exchange. We were about to, actually, now that I say that. And then, so we put that on our list of things that we could reinvest in. But we went over there that very day, got some burgers and some chili cheese dogs and stuff, and asked one of the car hops, like, is this place for sale really? I've heard it was on the internet. And they're like, yeah, it really is. And they want a lot of money for it though, like that. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm curious to know. And they gave us the number of the realtor they were using, who we actually knew. But anyways, we got a hold of him, started working out negotiations, got it done, and bought it like within a matter of a few months.
Okay.
And then, of course, as soon as we buy it, and everybody's like, oh, I wanted to buy that place. I was like, we won.
How long ago was that?
That was 21.
Okay, 2021.
Yeah. Yeah, we were real dummies. We buy stuff during pandemics and economic strife and whatnot.
Then a couple of years before, a big flood in the area.
Yeah. That was a rough one there.
That business, did it feel a little bit different from the pizza restaurant because it's a drive-in? Because
it was. It's really cool because it was more of a kind of a laid-back vibe there. Even though people were a little bit aggressive towards us, like, she was going to sell it regardless. Sue was going to sell it. Right. She's old. She's sick. She hadn't been there in like 8 years, like even at the place. She had this lady, lovely woman, Donna, that ran the place for her for years and years. And, but she was never there, and they were ready to retire. Yeah. So it was going to happen. But for whatever reason, people don't like change. So we get in there and they're like, oh, it was better before. And
they'd probably been customers, since the 70s or 80s or something.
Right off the bat, I changed it to certified Angus beef. We do fresh smash patties. It's never frozen. I mean, it's just a whole lot better quality meat. Costs more, of course, but not a whole lot. And I just think it was worth doing. But then instantly you got people like, these burgers suck. They're not near as good as the old ones. I was like, you didn't know what you were eating before then.
Has that been a learning process in operating a little bit different business?
Oh yeah.
Just I mean, the finances, the hours, the overhead, like all those things are so different.
And I think having LaBella / Big Jim's prior helped us make better decisions with KN, just because of the fact that we knew that we didn't want to be open all hours of the day and night. We didn't want to be open 7 days a week, things like that. A lot of the restaurant groups we're in a bunch of groups on Facebook and things like that of other restaurant owners, stuff like that give you good advice, sometimes stupid advice, but most of the time it's good advice. And that was one of the things as they talk about the days of the week being open. Because I'm like, well, obviously I want my business to get as much money in as possible. So I want to be open all the time and all things like that. Well, a lot of these restaurant owners can tell you from experience that 7 days a week doesn't mean you make more money. Just means you spend more money because you're open 7 days a week, because people will just come the other day. The same people that are going to come all 7 days will just all cram into those 5 days. And that's been very evident with KN. Okay. Very much.
The other business opportunity I wanted to talk to you about was another legendary institution in Amarillo, which was the Tascosa Drive-In.
Yeah.
And I know that that was a really public one because it closed without
Right.
a transition of ownership.
Yep.
And so all of a sudden it was just gone. And then I guess it was a few months later that you guys were able to announce that you had acquired it. So tell me how that happened, why that happened. Running a drive-in is not the same as running a drive-in restaurant or a pizza place either. So
I just feel like all of our stuff kind of has a trend that we buy, iconic restaurants in need of help or businesses, I guess you got to say, because even though Tascosa is somewhat of a restaurant, we do sell a lot of food out of there, but nothing like the other ones, but it's still, considered that, I would say. We've known the Burns family for quite a long time. Jean Burns, so she's coming to my mother-in-law and my father-in-law at their salon for years. My wife's was always interested in buying the place. They bought it in 99. And ever since then, she's like, oh man, if you guys ever decide to sell it, let us know, and they never decided to sell it till way, way long, years later. And, but when they did, it was expensive, we're like, wow, that's a lot of money. I wonder what it brings in. And of course they didn't really have the numbers to show. A lot of it was a lot of cash business and things like that. So it's kind of harder to track. And if you did all credit card and everything was showing, you could obviously say, well, it makes this much money. Of course, this is why it's worth $1.5 million or something like that. But being cash, they didn't have all that same tracking. So, but when he put it for sale and then he reduced it and we're like, oh man, it's coming down. Maybe, we should think about it. And I think he came down a couple more times. But we were just like, you know what, we're really not in a spot to do it right now because, Big Jim's wasn't doing the best. We just got done with a legal battle. We just bought KN not too long ago. We're still got a lot of irons in the fire. And then we saw that he was going to dissolve the place and auction everything off for parts. And we're like, man, we can't let him do that. Yeah. So we shot him a message and, gave him a price that we were comfortable with, and he took it.
Okay.
So, and then once we got started with him, of course, again, we've known them. So it's kind of a little bit different of a setup with them because we're kind of friends and stuff. I mean, we're a little more than associates, I'd say. We met them a few times and all that. So they're really good people, but they've been dealt a bad hand, and that's part of why they don't want to do it anymore. Why they wanted to close. I don't know who all has known about their sons, but they lost both their sons to muscular dystrophy at 13 and 17 years old. So catastrophic for their family, and he just doesn't want to be there anymore. He doesn't have his heart, it is not in it. And, like he told me, he says, I've intended on handing this business to my sons and I don't have anybody to hand it to anymore. Yeah. So because of that, so we're happy and proud to be able to know that and move forward with that in mind so that we can honor them, in the future. And that's one of our big plans, as we talked about, is we want to redo the playground out in front of the screen, and we want to put out a handicap accessible playground out there. Wonderful man not too long ago, when I started talking about that on Facebook, asked me if I was interested in a wheelchair swing. And I've been looking them up, and they're like $4,500, $5,000. They're pretty expensive. And so I said, yeah, I'd be interested. I'll come take a look at it, which I had a heck of a time getting over there to see him for a couple of weeks, just trying to get everything going at the drive-in. But I finally went over there. He has a handicapped daughter that she's actually bedbound. I think they can get her out in a wheelchair and things like that. But, for the most part, she's in bed. And he said he made this for this other guy. And he goes, the deal fell through, so I've still got it here if you're interested. And I went over and take a look at it. And here's this thing's pristine, brand new. Fresh paint, he just made it. I said, yeah, I think I'd be interested in it. What do you want for it? He goes, oh, I don't want anything for it. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, no, I'm going to give it to you. And he goes, if you want another one, let me know. I'm like, well, I'm not going to take two. Well, if anything, can I buy some materials or something if we do that in the future? But just a really, really nice guy, and just gave it to us. So we've got it sitting out there ready to rock and roll as soon as we can get the next step going. But we've got to get a pretty good season under our belt because we came in so late in the year this year.
Right, yeah, you didn't have a full season.
Yeah, so we had a couple of good movies like Deadpool. It was a great one. Beetlejuice was awesome. Stuff like that. We had really full houses, did really well, made a lot of money, but all the money that we're getting right now is going back into improvements.
Yeah, so tell me how you think about that, because it's another situation where you've got a customer base that loves the drive-in, has memories of it, how it has been for years and years. And then a new owner comes in and says, okay, I want to keep this, but there are places to improve.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a delicate balance. You don't want to improve too much so it doesn't feel like the same thing that people have all this nostalgia for.
Sure.
So how do you deal with that?
I think what we've talked about mainly is going back to what it looked like prior to overtime. Money didn't get put back into it.
Places start to decline.
Yeah, everything needs to be kept up. And some of that's what it is. Like at the marquee and things like that, there was a couple of pieces of sheet metal may have come off the backside, which caused wind to blow through, and it blew out the front side of the sign. So that's why we don't have that up there right now. And as much as I'd love to put a digital board up there, I really don't have $100,000 to put one of those up. So we're actually going to put up the old one again, where we stick the letters up one by one. Yeah, we're going to do that again, and I'd like to reskin the columns and stuff like that, so make it look pretty again, and put the T's back up and some lighting and things like that, and paint the screen. That's like one of our top priorities there. But it's nuts. You don't even think about it, how big that thing is when you do the square footage on it. It's like 36 or 3,800 square feet. Just the screen.
Flat surface to
paint.
It's
like it's bigger than most people's houses, just up there on the wall. So it's pretty wild to do that, but that's a lot of square footage of paint. And you need a certain kind of paint for it and all that to make it right. So it's a lot. And then doing the lift, that was the biggest thing, because I could probably even do the painting myself with the airless and all that, but it's getting the lift and all that out there. You got to have a great big lift to get 70 feet up in the air and all that. So just more expense that we're just not quite ready for yet. Other than, we put a lot of money in it already. Just getting the kitchens and, concession stand, the kitchen going and things like that. We spent a lot of money on the projector to get it maintenanced, and new bulb or lamp. Sorry, I'll get in trouble if I call it a bulb.
No, people don't understand. Like, those are significant expenses too.
Yeah. Oh, the bulb alone is $1,600 and it only lasts 800 hours.
Okay.
So that's a big one. And then we also have there's a maintenance guy that he's a technician. He comes in from Arkansas to maintenance it. Well, that's like $2,500, I think, for him just to do a biannual maintenance and cleaning.
Okay.
So there's a lot of stuff with it. And then the movie theaters, of course, they take a bulk of that. So we got to try and do our best making money selling the food and stuff like that, which that was another thing that we made the executive decision on, is that, that's the way we make our money, is selling concessions. And
you know how to do that.
Yeah, and we do know how to do that. But what we did was we decided to go very inexpensive on everything. Because like at big gyms, I've tried to go kind of over the top, I think. My wife tells me a lot of the times, why you got to do all that? I want to have the best of everything. We use Stanislaus tomatoes and things like that for our sauce, and we get the best cheeses, and things like that, which is probably the opposite of what you should be doing in this economy, which, I don't know, maybe it'll turn around and be better, but it is a good product. At the drive-in, we decided we're still going to try and do the best we can with the quality of things, but do the small actual portions that they recommend instead. Like you get an order of mozzarella sticks at big gyms, and it's a half a pound of mozzarella sticks. Okay. So it's like 10, which is a huge order. You go anywhere else, it's 5 to 6 normally, because that's the portion. Well, I'm a fat guy. I want a big portion. That's how it works. But at the drive-in, we're actually doing the right portions. So that makes the items less expensive. Still good quality, still all the same stuff, but they're smaller portions. We get compliments constantly at the drive-in how inexpensive the food is out there. Like you get a hot dog and it's like $3 or $4 or something like that. And
when people are used to paying like $8 for some popcorn at the movie theater.
And it's a ballpark dog. I mean, it's the same. It's not like it's some cheap bar-S something or other, or whatever, So it's still a good hot dog and things like that. So that's what we're trying to do. But that makes it difficult where we don't make as much money, and because the movies take the bulk of it on the box office. Okay.
The last thing I wanted to ask you is this, just to wrap this up, you didn't really come here on purpose. You definitely didn't grow up here. It's a different culture here than what you knew in Chicago area.
Yeah.
But you planted yourself. Now you own multiple businesses. You're involved with the community in a lot of different ways. Is there something unique about this area that has kept you here, other than marriage, other than work, but like you've stayed here and planted and invested here instead of like going back or moving someplace else? Why is that?
I feel connected here. My great grandma and my grandma were both from here, And so my grandpa met her down here when he was in the Air Force during the Korean War.
Okay.
So he was out at the base. He came down from up north, met her dad, my great grandpa. They became buddies, and then he introduces his daughter to his future son-in-law, and the rest is history back and forth. So I do have a connection here from that. Mm-hmm. My great grandfather used to own there was a Reed's Market over where Reed's Appliance used to be.
Yeah, okay.
That my great grandpa built that building. And he had a market there to begin with. It was a laundry for one point, and then it was like Joanne Fabrics and all this other stuff before it's the current O'Reilly's now. But they had that bunch of property and things like that here. So I feel connected with the place here. And I mean, really my big thing is I really love the people here. I've met most of my best friends ever here. You know, again, my buddy Matt that passed, he was just one of the coolest people I've ever met, and we had a blast all the time. And I've met a lot of people like that here, more so than I ever did up north, honestly. I mean, because we were younger. We didn't have the personalities we have now or the money to do things or, you know, abilities, really, for that matter, because I didn't have any money, you know. So you get to have fun and do these fun things. I made a lot more connections here, I think, is what it is in my life, especially with, you know, with my wife and all my friends that I've met here over the years. So you know, that's just, you know, and once the kids come along, you know, then you're totally stuck. It makes it a lot harder. And I love my mother and father-in-law, honestly. They're just really cool people. And if they don't want to move, I don't want to move. And I think they're good where they are. So that's why we're here still.
This episode of Hey Amarillo is supported by Amarillo Habitat for Humanity, which works with families across the city to provide an alternative path to home ownership. This includes financial stability courses, volunteer construction, sweat equity from the families, reasonable down payments, and no interest loans. It's not a free giveaway. Strong and stable homes help build strong and stable communities. There are a lot of great nonprofits in Amarillo, but Habitat is the only one that focuses on affordable home ownership. It helps people help themselves, and that's why I love this organization. Thanks to Amarillo Habitat for Humanity for sponsoring this podcast. Learn more at amarillohabitat.org. Okay, I'm back with Jim Dewitz. This is the part of the show I call 8 Straight. 8 Straight is sponsored every week by Panhandle Plains Historical Museum in Canyon. It's the largest history museum in Texas, and its collection includes a photographic interpretation handbook from the U.S. Army Air Force in 1945. This was a confidential reference manual that allowed interpreters to identify enemy and allied aircraft based on their silhouettes in the sky or in recon photos when they would look at those. It's a really interesting book. It used to be confidential, but now it's at the museum. Sure. You can learn more at panhandleplains.org. Okay, I know you spend a lot of time thinking about the future because you're a business owner. So when you think about Amarillo 10 years from now, what do you hope for?
I really think that we should be a community full of people that pride themselves on having the highest percentage of successful local businesses. Okay. I think that'd be really cool to be able to say that to people, you know, that we have more locally owned businesses that are in the black. Right. You know, that we're doing well. Everybody's, you know, killing it, making livings and, you know, having the best of the world here. Okay, why not? Why not here than anywhere else?
There is a real spirit of entrepreneurship here. Yeah. I found, like, and the public wants you to thrive. They want to support locally owned businesses. And it's the right size to, like, try new things, sure. I think, or introduce new ideas.
Yeah, it's a big enough market to...
Yeah, it's big enough, but it's not so big that you can't be the only person doing a drive-in movie theater or something like that.
Yeah. So, you get swallowed up in those bigger places, you know. And, I mean, this is just right.
Okay, other than wind, what does this area have too much of?
I was going to say originally I was thinking dust, but that kind of goes with the wind.
It does have wind relation there.
But honestly, I was thinking about that, and I think that we probably have too much homelessness and stray animals in this town, especially since we've been over at the drive-in. I've seen a whole lot more of that, and it's as far as the pets go. The homelessness has happened more recently, too. I mean, I was kind of attributed it to being the hub of I-40 and all that, but man, homelessness has been really bad, and it seems like, and I think that's partially to do with people not being able to make enough money to live. Yeah. You know, so if there's something we can do to fix that.
I think so. I feel like there are plans in place. I think Transformation Park is a good idea. Yeah. We're just kind of waiting for all those to be finished and then see if it has an impact on that sort of thing.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I hope so. What does this area not have enough of?
I think it doesn't have enough lakes.
Okay.
Because where I'm from, there's lakes everywhere.
Right.
Or even some mountains wouldn't be too bad in my opinion. But, obviously we are where we are. But lakes would be pretty cool.
We have a lot of temporary lakes.
Right, yeah.
They're lakes for a month or two.
Yeah, we had a lake out in front of Big Jim's in Canton.
Well, I was going to say, parking lot lakes
for a
sometimes.
month or so, yeah. We even had people with kayaks out there.
I saw those, yeah.
I bought the one couple, they were out there, and I bought them a beer. We were at Big Jim's. Come on, pull up, dock up over here, and I'll buy you a beer. So.
What's your favorite local neighborhood?
Wolfland.
Okay.
I've lived there over 20 years. I just love it over there. It kind of... That and Olson both kind of remind me of home a little bit because of a little bit of the texture to the ground, lots more bigger, older trees. So I do like that area. We've lived there all of our adult lives. So
okay. Other than your own, or the 2 or 3 you have, if you count the drive-in, like what's your favorite local restaurant?
I mean, that's a really tough one to do because I have so many friends in the business. Being in the business, I'd hate to hurt anybody's feelings. Yeah. Can I give you 10? You can.
Well, 10 might be a lot. Let's say you're going to go out, when you have a night off and you want to eat someplace and not fix your own food. What are some of the places on your radar that you go to?
I mean, just a quick list of them. I mean, if we're going to go out for a nice, like a really fancy dinner, if I'm taking the wife on a date, we love OHMS.
Okay.
Of course, we're good friends with Tanya over at Pesquera's and Mickey over at Lazy Gator. We love Tyler's Barbecue. That's a good one. Places like that. We love Bangkok for a night we go on for Asian or Thai food or anything like that. Oh, and Jimmy over at Green Chili Willie's. He's awesome.
Okay. Yeah.
I could ramble on for hours on that one, honestly.
That's a pretty good list, though.
We don't eat out as much as we can because most of the time we eat at our own places because you're there working.
Yeah.
We don't have time to go anywhere to eat. But when we get a chance, that's probably our top ones so far.
Okay.
If I forgot anybody, I apologize. I love you still.
What's your favorite local nonprofit?
That one is real near and dear to my heart. It's Boom, the brothers and sisters of our military adventures. My buddy Blake Seabrick runs it. We met him a few years back because we didn't really touch on this yet, but my wife's uncle is Tom Creek, who the VA is named after. So we're a Gold Star family. And
the Panhandle's not the Panhandle's own, the Amarillo's only Medal of Honor winner.
Right, and the youngest in Texas.
And the youngest in Texas, yeah.
But we met Blake because he was doing the Gold Star dinner. When we go and meet, everybody gets together, and I think that we were at Hofbrau. I think it was the first one we ever went to with him, and I got to meet him, and he's just been a real awesome friend, a good buddy. I try and help them out when we can, like when they have... He lets me know when they're doing they go and do work on a vet's house or something like that. If they want to put a wheelchair ramp in or whatever, and he gets volunteers together, well, he calls me and we feed them.
Okay.
So we always try and do that any chance we get. I mean, if he calls me, we're there every time. So, but yeah, definitely they do great things. They take people out hunting and things like that for children of vets and vets alike. Okay. So I think it's just a really cool nonprofit. And great cause.
What's the most underrated aspect of living here in Amarillo?
I'm saying the cost of living, because I really feel like people don't appreciate it as much as they should in this town. I'm kind of like, take a trip.
Yeah.
Go anywhere else and see what it's like. I mean, every time my wife and I leave we'll go to Oklahoma City for a little weekend away or something like that, $1,000 in a weekend, just eating out and, obviously the hotel room's money, but just everything else is so much more expensive. The housing's probably the best around, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so.
I kind of feel like Greg Mitchell, I don't know the Mitchell family at all, but I kind of feel like they get a bad rap about gas prices because I literally just saw it yesterday that we're like the lowest in Texas on gas prices. And then you'll just hear somebody complain on the internet, like, oh, that's why our gas is high.
Yeah, we'll drive to Colorado and see.
Yeah, right. I mean, I call my mom right now and see what gas is. I bet it's $4 something for gas, without question. I don't know. I think that the cost of living here is really a massive benefit.
Yeah, I think that's really valid.
You might make less money, but you spend less.
It goes a lot further.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, last question. When was the last time you visited Cadillac Ranch?
I was thinking it was probably, I think it's been a year and a half, maybe 2, and my sister and my nephew came down to visit. Okay. He was 5 at the time, and when they came down, that was one of the things. Of course, when people come to visit, we take them to the Cadillac Ranch, take them to Paladero Canyon.
Yeah.
And then every once in a while, we'll try and get them out to the Big Texas to go see the rattlesnake and all that business.
Yeah, those are the 3 destinations for tourists for sure.
Yeah. And big gyms, of course.
Yeah, and big gyms. Okay, so that concludes the 8 straight questions. I like to close by asking my guests to endorse something. So what's one thing you would like listeners to know about or to experience?
For sure, I would say the Tascosa Drive-In. I mean, if it's amazing how many people we get out there that say, this is my first time at a drive-in. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, man, this thing's been here since the dawn of time, and you've never been out here? Like nobody? And I think that's a really cool one. But again, I'd say back to those same big 3 I just talked about too. That's something I always bring people when they're out of town. I want to take them to those places.
Tell me let me think of listeners who haven't been to the drive-in. They go see movies all the time, but they're going out to, Cinemark or wherever.
Right.
What is it about the experience of the drive-in that sets it apart, that makes it a better experience?
Well, I think partially because I feel like it actually sounds better if it's in your car. If you have a newer car or a decent sound system in it, it sounds really good in there. You get all the movements and things like that. It's a lot of fun just being outside. We got a guy that works for us named Tree, and that he had it right on when we first started out there. He's like, it's just a total festival vibe out there. Everybody's kind of just hanging out. During the summertime when it's nice out, everybody, like a lot of folks, bring picnic tables, or like not picnic tables, like card tables and the folding chairs and things like that. And they'll just sit outside and hang out. There's a couple of people that actually sit out there and play dominoes when we were out there and things like that. So it's kind of like a hangout. We open plenty early, so you got a good 2 hours before the sun sets that you can hang out and just do whatever out there. And of course, the kids playing on the playground, that's always a blast. We have the old school merry-go-round, like and all that. And then we have the slide of death. Yeah.
The kinds of playgrounds that we remember from our childhood, but you don't find anymore.
They don't make those anymore. Yeah. But I'm telling you, that merry-go-round is an absolute riot to watch.
It's a lot of fun.
Because I don't know, it's like, can they pack any more kids on that thing? And then there's like 5 of them spinning the other ones around, and they're slinging off of there. It's just hilarious. Yeah,
every park had some older kid who just had a reputation. All the younger kids were terrified of him, and he would sling them on those little merry-go-rounds.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, Jim Dewitz, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I appreciate it.
Me.
And that concludes the episode. I want to say thanks to Jim for the interview. You can learn more about his businesses at ilovebigjimpizza.com, knrootbeeramarillo.com, and amarillodrivein.com. Thanks also to Amarillo Habitat for Humanity and Panhandle Plains Historical Museum for supporting this podcast, and to Angelina Marie for editing every week. Thank you for listening. Hey Amarillo exists on a weekly basis because of listeners like you and the local people who support it financially through patreon.com/heyamarillo. Hey Amarillo's executive producers include Jason Burr, Katie Linger, Patrick Burns, Josh Wood, Wes Reeves, Cindy Graham, Corey Burns, and Barbara and Jim Whitten. This has been episode 385. My name is Jason Boyette, and I'll see you next week.